What if I told you that the same missile system protecting the White House could stop a swarm of Iranian drones over Kyiv, intercept cruise missiles in the Middle East, and still have time to track a hypersonic threat, all while costing a fraction of what traditional air defense systems demand? This isn't science fiction. It's NASAMS, the National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, and right now, it's quietly revolutionizing how nations think about defending their airspace. While everyone's focused on flashy hypersonic missiles and sixth-generation fighters, this unassuming system has become the backbone of integrated air defense for over a dozen nations. Today, we're diving deep into the weapon system that military planners call the Swiss Army knife of air defense. In an era where a $1,000 drone can destroy a $1 million tank, traditional air defense has hit a crisis point. Nations are scrambling to protect everything from capital cities to critical infrastructure. But here's the problem. Most air defense systems are either too expensive, too specialized, or too complex to deploy rapidly. Enter NASAMS, a system that flips the script on conventional thinking. Developed jointly by Norway's Kongsberg Defense and America's Raytheon, this medium-range surface-to-air missile system doesn't try to be the biggest or the baddest. Instead, it aims to be the smartest and most adaptable. What we're exploring today isn't just another missile system. We're examining a fundamental shift in air defense philosophy. We'll uncover how NASAMS works at the technical level, trace its evolution from Cold War necessity to modern marvel, analyze its combat performance from Washington to Kyiv, and confront the controversies surrounding its limitations. By the end of this analysis, you'll understand why military experts consider NASAMS the gold standard for protecting high-value targets in contested airspace. More importantly, you'll grasp why the future of air defense might look less like Star Wars and more like smart networked systems that turn existing weapons into coordinated shields. Let's start with the engineering marvel that makes this all possible. Imagine you're building the ultimate home security system, but instead of protecting a house, you're defending an entire city. You'd want multiple cameras, various alarm types, and the ability to respond to different threats appropriately. That's essentially what NASAMS does for airspace. At its core, NASAMS consists of three critical elements, working in perfect harmony. First, the AIM-120 Sentinel radar, think of it as the system's eyes, can track up to 60 targets simultaneously within a roughly 75-mile radius. This 3D radar rotates continuously, updating target positions every second while distinguishing between friendly aircraft, hostile threats, and even birds. The second element is the Fire Distribution Center, or FDC, essentially the brain of the operation. This command post processes radar data, assigns threats to specific launchers, and coordinates the entire engagement sequence. Operators inside see a real-time air picture on their screens, with sophisticated algorithms helping prioritize which threats to engage first. But here's where NASAMS gets clever. Unlike most surface-to-air systems that use proprietary missiles, NASAMS fires the exact same AIM-120 AMRAAM and AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles used by fighter jets. This seemingly simple choice creates massive advantages. Military forces already stock these missiles for their air forces, technicians already know how to maintain them, and the supply chains already exist. The launchers themselves come in multiple configurations. The standard canister launcher holds 6 missiles and can engage targets from ground level up to 50,000 feet. But NASAMS can also use rail launchers, mobile launchers on trucks, or even fixed installations hidden in buildings. When a threat appears, here's what happens in real time. The Sentinel radar detects and tracks the target, sending data to the Fire Distribution Center. Operators classify the threat. Is it a cruise missile, drone, helicopter, or fighter jet? The system calculates an optimal intercept point, considering the target's speed, altitude, and trajectory. Within seconds, the selected launcher receives firing commands. The missile launches, initially guided by the ground radar, then switches to its own active radar seeker for the final intercept. The entire engagement, from detection to destruction, typically takes less than 15 seconds. But NASAMS has another trick. It's completely networked. Multiple batteries can share data, creating overlapping coverage zones. One radar can guide missiles from another battery's launcher. This distributed architecture means there's no single point of failure. The system even integrates with other air defense platforms. In Norway, NASAMS talks directly to their fighter jets. In the United States, it connects to the broader integrated air and missile defense network. This interoperability transforms individual batteries into nodes in a vast defensive web. Yet perhaps the most ingenious aspect is what engineers call graceful degradation. If the radar gets damaged, NASAMS can use data from other sensors. If the command center goes offline, individual launchers can operate autonomously. The system keeps fighting even as components fail. But how did we get here? The story of NASAMS begins in the frozen fjords of Norway, where the Cold War demanded creative solutions to impossible problems. The year was 1989, and Norway faced a nightmare scenario. Soviet bombers could reach Norwegian airfields in minutes, while the country's scattered population and rugged terrain made traditional air defense nearly impossible. Norway needed something revolutionary, a system that could protect high-value targets without bankrupting the nation. The Norwegian Defense Research Establishment partnered with Kongsberg to create what they call the Norwegian Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System. The breakthrough idea? Use the same AMRAAM missiles their F-16 fighters carried, but launch them from the ground. This radical simplification slashed costs while maintaining effectiveness. By 1995, the first NASAMS battery became operational, protecting Oslo. But the system's true test came on September 11, 2001. Within hours of the attacks, the United States realized its capital had virtually no air defense. The Secret Service and military planners scrambled for solutions. In 2004, NASAMS became the guardian of Washington, D.C. The system offered what America needed: proven reliability, quick deployment, and the ability to engage everything from small aircraft to cruise missiles. This deployment marked NASAMS' transformation from regional solution to global standard. The evolution accelerated with NASAMS 2 in 2007, adding new radars, extended range, and network-centric capabilities. Countries from Finland to Australia recognized NASAMS could solve their air defense gaps without the complexity of systems like Patriot or S-400. NASAMS 3, introduced in 2019, represented another leap forward. It expanded missile options to include the AIM-9X Sidewinder for short-range threats and the AMRAAM-ER, with a 50% range increase. The system could now engage targets from point blank to over 30 miles away. Each generation addressed lessons from real-world deployments. When operators in hot climates reported issues, engineers added enhanced cooling. When urban deployments proved challenging, they developed concealed launcher options. This continuous refinement process, informed by operational feedback, keeps NASAMS relevant. The system's modularity enabled remarkable adaptability. Indonesia configured NASAMS for coastal defense. Lithuania integrated it with their border surveillance network. Qatar deployed it to protect stadiums during the World Cup. Each implementation looked different, yet used the same core architecture. By 2020, over 12 nations operated NASAMS, with more in the procurement pipeline. The system had evolved from a Nordic experiment to the West's medium-range air defense standard. Annual production increased fivefold as demand surged. But the ultimate test would come in 2022, when NASAMS faced its first major combat deployment in the skies over Ukraine, a proving ground that would either validate or shatter its reputation. On November 7, 2022, NASAMS fired its first shots in anger over Ukraine. Within minutes, it destroyed 2 Russian cruise missiles heading for critical infrastructure in Kyiv. This wasn't a test range. This was the system's trial by fire against one of the world's most sophisticated military powers. The Pentagon confirmed that in its first month of combat, Ukrainian NASAMS achieved a 100% success rate against Russian cruise missiles. Think about that. Every single cruise missile engaged was destroyed. But the real story is more complex than perfect statistics suggest. The Ukrainian operators quickly discovered NASAMS' sweet spot, engaging cruise missiles, drones, and helicopters at medium range. Against subsonic cruise missiles like the Caliber, NASAMS proved devastating. The system's rapid reaction time meant threats had minimal warning before intercept. But here's what doesn't make the headlines. NASAMS operators in Ukraine developed entirely new tactics. They created ambush zones, positioning launchers along likely cruise missile routes while keeping radars further back. This cat-and-mouse game forced Russian planners to constantly adjust attack vectors. The network nature of NASAMS proved crucial when Russia began targeting air defense sites. Even when individual components were damaged, the system continued functioning. One documented case showed a NASAMS battery engaging targets 12 hours after its primary radar was destroyed, using data from other sensors. In Washington, NASAMS operates differently, but no less critically. The system maintains a 24/7 protective bubble around the Capitol, integrated with Coast Guard radars, Air Force sensors, and even FAA traffic control. Since deployment, it's intercepted multiple airspace violations, though specific engagements remain classified. The National Capital Region's NASAMS configuration includes both fixed and mobile elements. Hidden launchers protect key sites, while mobile units can rapidly reposition based on threat assessments. During major events like inaugurations, additional NASAMS batteries deploy to expand coverage. Middle Eastern deployments offer another perspective. Oman uses NASAMS to protect oil infrastructure from drone attacks. The United Arab Emirates positions batteries around airports and ports. These deployments face different challenges: extreme heat, sandstorms, and asymmetric threats from non-state actors. Training exercises reveal fascinating capabilities. During Nordic Response 2023, Norwegian NASAMS engaged 62 targets in rapid succession, simulating a mass drone attack. The system's ability to handle saturation attacks, where enemies launch numerous cheap threats simultaneously, proved remarkable. Real combat exposed some limitations too. NASAMS struggles against ballistic missiles, which exceed its engagement envelope. Against hypersonic weapons, the system can track but rarely intercept. Ukrainian operators learn to coordinate NASAMS with other systems, using it for specific threat sets while relying on Patriots or similar systems for ballistic defense. The combat data flowing back from Ukraine drives continuous improvements. Software updates now happen monthly, incorporating lessons learned. New engagement algorithms, refined based on actual intercepts, increase hit probability. This real-time evolution keeps NASAMS ahead of emerging threats. Yet for all its success, NASAMS faces growing criticism about fundamental limitations that no amount of software can fix. Let's address the elephant in the room. NASAMS can't stop everything, and in modern warfare, that's becoming a serious problem. Critics argue the system represents yesterday's solution to tomorrow's threats, and they're not entirely wrong. The range limitation hits hardest. With a maximum engagement distance around 30 miles for standard AMRAAM missiles, NASAMS can't provide area defense like Patriot or S-400 systems. This means you need multiple batteries to protect even a medium-sized city, driving costs skyward. Against ballistic missiles, NASAMS is essentially useless. The system wasn't designed for exo-atmospheric intercepts or targets traveling at Mach 5+. When Iran launched ballistic missiles at Israel, NASAMS units could only watch while Arrow and David's sling systems engaged. This capability gap becomes glaring as more nations acquire ballistic missiles. The cost equation gets complicated too. While individual NASAMS batteries cost less than Patriot systems, you need more of them for equivalent coverage. Each AMRAAM missile costs around $1 million, reasonable for downing fighter jets, questionable for destroying cheap drones. Ukraine reportedly exhausted monthly missile allocations in days during intense bombardments. Political controversies simmer beneath the surface. Norway profits handsomely from NASAMS sales while maintaining strict neutrality rhetoric. Critics question whether arms sales align with Nordic peace-building traditions. The integration of American and Norwegian technology also creates sovereignty concerns for some operators. Technical vulnerabilities worry experts most. NASAMS relies heavily on radar detection, making it vulnerable to stealth technology and electronic warfare. Russian forces in Ukraine actively jam NASAMS radars, forcing operators to constantly shift frequencies and positions. Future conflicts might see more sophisticated jamming that could blind the system entirely. The networking that makes NASAMS powerful also creates cyber vulnerabilities. In 2019, researchers demonstrated theoretical attacks that could feed false targets to NASAMS computers. While these vulnerabilities were patched, the threat of cyber infiltration remains. A successful hack could turn the defensive system into a liability. Maintenance complexity surprises many operators. Despite using common missiles, NASAMS requires specialized training and constant software updates. Smaller nations struggle to maintain readiness without contractor support. This dependence on foreign technicians raises sovereignty and security concerns. The emerging drone swarm threat poses existential questions. NASAMS can engage multiple targets, but what happens when hundreds of cheap drones attack simultaneously? Each million-dollar missile might destroy a $1,000 drone, a losing economic proposition. Some analysts argue NASAMS represents an obsolete paradigm of expensive precision against cheap mass. Environmental concerns rarely make headlines, but matter increasingly. Each NASAMS intercept creates debris that can damage property or injure civilians. In urban environments, the cure might prove worse than the disease. Shooting down drones over cities risks turning them into unguided missiles. Competition intensifies from newer systems. Israel's Iron Dome offers better economics against cheap threats. Directed energy weapons promise magazine-deep capabilities without million-dollar missiles. Some experts view NASAMS as a transitional technology, soon to be replaced by laser and microwave systems. The classification paradox frustrates transparency advocates. Most NASAMS combat data remains secret, making independent assessment impossible. We rely on government statements about effectiveness, but without verification, skepticism grows. How effective is NASAMS really? The full truth stays locked in classified vaults. Despite these challenges, NASAMS continues evolving, but the question remains, is evolution enough when the threat landscape demands revolution? So where does this leave us? NASAMS represents both the pinnacle of traditional air defense and possibly its last generation. The system excels at its designed role, protecting high-value targets from conventional air threats at medium range. In that narrow but critical mission, it remains unmatched. The key takeaways are sobering yet significant. First, NASAMS proves that smart integration beats raw capability. By using existing missiles and networking multiple sensors, it achieves remarkable effectiveness without astronomical costs. Second, real combat in Ukraine validates the concept while exposing limitations. NASAMS works brilliantly within its envelope, but can't be everything to everyone. Third, the future of air defense isn't about single systems, but layered, integrated networks. NASAMS succeeds precisely because it doesn't try to work alone. When paired with other systems, each covering different threat spectrums, the combined defense becomes formidable. The strategic implications extend beyond military planning. Nations must decide whether investing in current generation systems, like NASAMS, makes sense when directed energy weapons lurk on the horizon. Do you buy proven capability today or wait for revolutionary technology tomorrow? Ukraine couldn't wait. They needed NASAMS immediately. For smaller nations, NASAMS offers a gateway to credible air defense without superpower budgets. For major powers, it provides a reliable middle layer in comprehensive defense architectures. This flexibility ensures NASAMS will remain relevant even as newer technologies emerge. The system's evolution continues. NASAMS 4 development reportedly includes AI-enabled target recognition, counter-hypersonic capabilities, and directed energy weapon integration. Whether these upgrades can keep pace with threats remains uncertain. Perhaps NASAMS' greatest legacy isn't the missiles it fires, but the philosophy it embodies. In an era of military gigantism, bigger bombs, faster missiles, more expensive platforms, NASAMS shows that clever integration of existing technology can outperform purpose-built solutions. As we wrap up, consider this question for the comments. If you were defending your nation's capital with a limited budget, would you invest in a proven system like NASAMS that handles current threats well, or gamble on emerging technologies that might revolutionize air defense but remain unproven? The answer might determine whether future skies stay peaceful or become the next battlefield.